From the mundane to the modified, the Blista is a household name. Your old man no longer scoffs at these cars. Instead, while he kicks your tires approvingly, he mumbles a conceding comment about them being good little runners. It's transformed prejudices into purchases, had more identity crises than a child actor, and received more noise complaints than the apartment upstairs, which loves a little too loudly. This is the car which put Dinka on the map. The story of the Blista is a tale as old as time. A country recovering from the war mass-produces a small and affordable car for its people. The Japanese did this exceptionally well, with the Germans right behind them, after BF separated themselves from the dictators and flower children. Dinka's subcompact came to western shores just as oil stopped flowing and size stopped mattering. As much. Fast forward half a decade and the Blista became popular enough to have its own compact sport version. The marketing team must have been on vacation that day, because it left the factory as just the Blista Compact. Ironically, the Compact was only a foot shorter than the Hakumai, and it made the Fudo look like a go-kart. In an era packed full of automotive gadgets, gimmicks, and gizmos like pop-ups, headlight wipers, auto seatbelts, digital dashes, power steering, and airbags, the Compact had none of these. Instead, the three-door Blista came with an aggressive twin-cam four-banger, and the styling of a lopsided trapezoid. But what a beautiful lopsided trapezoid it was, equipped with a unibrow taillight, spoilers, intakes, factory steelies, two-tone undercladding, and a boxy interior. It also gave the world invariable valve timing. Instead of multiple cam profiles to maximize low and high-end performance, Dinka designed it to be as loud and as droning as possible. No matter how many times the driver yells it, the only thing that ever seems to kick in at 3,000 revs are your eardrums. Your average compact wasn't about to gab ruiners at the quarter mile either, although its 0 to 60 was impressive for its day. But with the V6 version exclusive to the Japanese market, the Blista was outclassed by the Fudo GTX in everything but price. Nevertheless, the Blista continued its uphill climb into the driveways and hearts of the people. It would continue to rebrand every few decades and really stretch that subcompact term to its limits. Here's where things get interesting. By the late 90s, the compact was no longer the hot hatch to buy. That status had been given to the Blista Kanjo. The compact fizzled into an estranged removable top roadster, not to be confused with the RT3000. Dinka knew what they were doing when they affectionately named the next generation of hatchbacks the Kanjo. The car was practically an open invitation for after-hours street racing, even having received Dinka's coveted performance trim. You know the one. It limited your colors to 4 and cranked your insurance rates to 11. Besides a badged lead and painted wheels, the Blista Kanjo gave you nearly double the horses. Which sounds great in theory for a car as light as a paperweight. Except without throttle discipline, you're paying for an express ticket into the wall. Because nothing says a high performance like excessive wheel spin, unpredictable understeer, and nauseating body roll. If given the chance, this car will try to kill you. But that's half the charm of Dinka's angry little hot hatch. Its highly tunable or swappable twin-cam 4 gave the driver the freedom to materialize their wildest dreams. Including whatever this is. Unfortunately, the days of inexpensive starter cars for the track and street have come and gone. Nowadays, a Kanjo hatch goes for the price of a kidney. 3 kidneys for one that hasn't been drilled, dropped, chopped, and wrecked in some way. And in rare circumstances, people will still sell off their 4-wheeled family member without checking the list prices. The ad will read something like, "Deborah needs a good home," before someone snatches it for half the asking price and guts poor Deborah, changes at her engine, and slams her wheels to the ground. Even having aged 30 years, everything about the Blista's design remains in perfect portion. There isn't an accent or bodyline which feels out of place. There aren't even panel gaps. The inside speaks for itself. Each button is as satisfying to push as the last. It has climate control, an input keypad, CD, cassette, radio display. The steering wheel even has buttons to keep the tunes blasting while you stay focused on weaving in and out of Sunday traffic, like the menace to society you are. And of course, behind that slapstick or plastered hatch lies enough space to fit every single piece of anime paraphernalia in your mom's basement, including that body pillow she still doesn't know about. Ugh. If a group of these is referred to as a kanjizoku, a group of these is a parking lot noise disturbance. Moving into the 2000s, Dinka decided it was time to create another sportier Blista, but with just the Kanjo name. It took some convincing that it wasn't just a 2-door Blista sedan, but once the dealerships figured out an upsell strategy, the Kanjo SJ was born. Ironically, the Blista they chose not to badge has become the definitive Blista, just narrowly losing out to the Asterope as the most unexceptional looking sedan. Its plastic hubcaps, accent trims, and smooth featureless edges may scream 90s leftovers. But 24 years ago, this car was seen as a promising family car. Thanks to the build quality and crippling economy, it still is today. It was even the grand prize back in Season 3 of America's Next Top Hook. Unlike its older sibling, the SJ seems to have taken the cost-effective route in terms of creature comforts. You get 2 vents and an above-dash head unit. But at least the passenger gets an airbag this time. When it wasn't being sent to the wrecker yards by first-time drivers, it was being modified to look like it probably should have been. Car modding in the 2000s was an absurdist race to the bottom. The SJ was susceptible to shopping list stickers, bright painted wheels, tacky liveries, see-through hoods, underglow, and who can forget Pegasi doors. The Kanjo SJ has that Dinka Bro vibe about it too. You'll want to hack the exhaust off, make your wheel detachable, and drop in a cold air filter, and wonder why your dash is lit up all these different colors. You might even begin to believe your sedan is a full-blown race car, right from the factory. It's not. The SJ is aggressively slow and handles just as awkwardly as its predecessor. But that's nothing a bit of weight reduction and tuning can't solve. By the tail end of the 2000s, the Blista was back to being just the Blista. Small, sporty, and affordable. An economic triple threat. Today, the Blista has the aura of an airport rental car. But back when people were learning to electronically stalk and dock with each other, the Blista was the compact to briefly rule them all. Instead of rewarding your empty thoughts with numbing social gratuity, it rewarded you with the urge to tell everyone just how sporty your car looked. Ignore the fact that Dinka downgraded the suspension, making it stiffer than trousers after a night of the pole position. They also cut costs with a weaker inline 4, conveniently disguising it with a cover wide enough to house a V8. The performance package didn't do it many favors either, making this generation of Blista a disappointment in the eyes of enthusiasts, and a cash cow for those who waited long enough for the nostalgia to make it an underrated future classic. Yet with its stiffer suspension and lower power, the Blista ended up feeling a lot more responsive to drive stock. Unfortunately, there aren't many redeeming qualities about the interior, unless you were hoping for a one-to-one replica of the SJs. Then it was time for something different. You can learn a lot from 50 years of victories, defeats, and generic consumerism. As to whether or not Dinka did is hard to say, but it's all led to this, the Sugoi. Don't get it twisted, Dinka of America will have you believing the Sugoi is a brand new full-size compact, which retains the spirit of its predecessors. But a quick iFind search reveals the Japanese and European markets have been referring to it as the Blista Sugoi for years. Dinka combined the successes of the sedan and the hatch models, stretching out their 3-door hatch into a 5, meaning there was plenty of space behind that hatch to store groceries for a family of 5, or protein supplements for a personal gym of 1. The styling was worlds apart from what had come before. Much like the Jester's transformation, Dinka created a Blista which was sharper and angrier than ever. Given its advances in styling and interior quality, it's no surprise the Sugoi sold like hotcakes across the world. Yet, it stumbled to meet its mark when it came to performance. You could buy the sportier version that gave you the wing and the attention of those around you, but that 4-cylinder engine, once again disguised with an 8-cylinder engine cover, couldn't cash the check. Where the Sugoi prevailed in commercial sales, it echoed the same defeats as its predecessors when it came to off-the-lot performance. Driving the Sugoi at speed requires the braking and throttle discipline of an open-wheel racer, without any of the performance. Cornering will result in massive understeer half the time, while the speed is barely faster than that of a Sultan from a decade ago. Even still, in this crossover and SUV-laden hellscape we call traffic, the Blista shines through as a hopeful beacon of light for those who know less is more. Half a century later, and the Blista still remains the affordable go-to for families, and the hero car for teenagers tired of hearing just how great their dad's Pajero was.